Hi everyone. So in this video, we are going to take a look at how we are going to use the Graph API to fetch the user information. So in this topic, we are going to fetch the information of the logged in user, and also we can fetch the information from the email address of any user. So we'll see the implementation, what libraries are we are going to use, and how we are going to create some functions. So I have already created a SPFX project. In that I have already installed the Graph API and the PnP JS library. So you need to install those as well. So let me just share with you the documentation as well. So here we have the PnP JS site. So from this you just need to install the PnP package along with the Graph API. So here if you go to PnP JS, then you have the get started. So currently I'm using a Node version of 18.20.3. So you just have to write this command after the SPFX installation is done. Then after that, I have this boilerplate code. So first I will remove all the code from here and just keep one simple HTML. So here you need to make sure that whenever you are using any Graph API, once you deploy the package, you have to grant the permission to these APIs. So currently I have already built few web parts using the Graph API, and I have already granted the permission. But if you are doing this for the very first time, so I will show you from where you can grant the permission. So let's assume that you have deployed the packages. So what you need to do, you just need to go to your admin center. So just click on this app launcher, just go to admin. You need to go to SharePoint admin center. So when I click on it, from this menu, you have to select the SharePoint. After that, under advanced, you have the tab called API access. So let's assume that you have named the web part as a hello world, or let's say the Graph API fetch data. So all the API requests for this particular solution will appear here. So as I have already deployed some application, so here we have the permission for the user.read and user.read.basic.all. So these two permission you have to grant. So once you have deployed this, it will automatically appear in the pending request. So currently you can see these are the approved requests, because as I already told you, I have already approved few of the requests in my existing web parts. So here you will see all the requests, and you need to select the request, and one by one you have to approve them. Then only you will be able to access the Graph API. So make sure that just to key point here, like whenever you approve any permission for the graph, it will approve for every package or every solution will be deployed in the future. So it's not limited to the existing package only. So let's say I built one web part and I have approved the Graph API permission for that. So it's not limited to that web part only. In future, if you make any application that uses that API, will have that access. Then let's go back to our file. Let me just share you the package that we are going to use. So under the PnP.js, go to packages. Here you have the graph, and in the graph we are going to use the user section. So these are the functions. So first I will show you what kind of data we are getting. So let's open the Graph Explorer. So here you can try out the responses. You can check the responses directly without using the code. So here we have the request graph/me. So this is the me endpoint that we are going to call. So if I run the query, so I will get the response like this. So I get the display name, given name, job title. So me endpoint represent whatever the information stored in the logged in user profile, it will return that. So we are going to use this one. And let's go to the PnP.js documentation. It says the current user. So to get the data of the current user, we just have to call this function and the graph.me. If you use the Microsoft Graph API client, then you have to write more line of code, but I always prefer PnP.js it gives you a lot more flexibility. So let's go back to our solution. So here the very first step is to import these packages. So I will import them. So I have already installed the Graph API, that's why I'm able to import it. But if you did not install it, you will face an error like this package does not found. So make sure you use the PnP JS installation first. After that, we have to call this. So first I will create a state to store the information. So let's say I will create an interface called iState, and then I will put it as any for now, but you can create an interface file of this so you can easily map all the fields. But for now I will create just any, and I will use this state in the class. After that we have to initialize a constructor. So here we have to give props, then whatever the props, whatever the solution name is, then this is the standard process. So this is not something which is different in every web part you write. So this is the standard process. Then we have to initialize the states as the blank value, because currently when you reload the page, the existing data will be blank until and unless we call that function to fetch the API. So this is our state, and here it will be user info will be, let's say, null. It's an object format, but as I have put any, that's why I can put that value as null. Then what I will do, I will just use the component mount. So whenever our web part renders, I want to call that function. So I'll use component mount. So in that, let's go to documentation. I will just copy it. So here just remove 3 dots, and here we have the context, but make sure that to set the context in our TS file as well. So I have already added the context here and our main file as well. So here what I need to do, just need to modify that using spfx this dot props dot context, and after that we have the current user. So we are using the async await, because whenever the data return, we'll wait for the response and then it move to the next block. So I will just add a async await. So that's a best practice whenever you are calling such APIs. So let me just put console and let's see what information we get here. So if I save it, so let's wait for code to run. So I will just write this message more clear. Logged in user detail. I have saved this, and let's see. So after a few seconds, this has been finished. Let me go back to the workbench. Let's open the console and reload the page. So here we have the hello, and here we got the response, logged in user detail. So let's see whatever the information we got here. So this is the data that I have already set up on my profile. But let's say if you are using the Graph API endpoint and you did not have any information set up, it will store it as null. So currently mobile phone is not set up here, that's why it shows as null. So these are the fields we get. So there is a business phone, display name, given name. So I have already initialized the state. So what I will do, from the current user, I will directly map the value. So after this, I will use this dot set state, and user info will be the current user. And let's say here I will just use the UL, and here we have the list. So the name will be whatever my state name is, user info. So user info is the object, but we want the value of it, right? So this is the object only. So notice this is not array of object, so you don't have to map it. So this is just an object, so you can directly write the dot and whatever the value you want to return. So first I will return the display name and few other values, like let's say id I will return mail, and let's say UPN. So I have saved this and let's wait for it to run. So till that time, one thing you notice whenever I refresh the web part, we did not see any loading indicator because it takes some few seconds or few milliseconds to call this API. So what you can do for the best practice, you can initialize a state for the loading. So until the data is loading, you can at least show the loading indicator so that user will think that okay, it's loading, so they can wait. But if you did not use any such kind of indicator, then it will be hard for user to know like okay, there is something processing behind the scenes, right? So this is finished. Let me just refresh it and see if we get the data. So there is a error. We have this technical detail reading the display name. So let's debug this one. So let me go here and just add a breakpoint. So we'll see how you can deal with such kind of error. So let's say if any value is there is empty, so how you can. Because I think current user display name is null. Okay, so what we can do, we can just add this one to condition. Okay, display name is null, then set as NA. For this, I will do this for every other thing, because sometimes if the value is null, you get the message like cannot read the properties of undefined, right? So this we need to handle in code as well, because it's not always sometime like user have every information set up on their profile, right? So you might face an error. So you have to handle each and every case as well. So I have already set up a few fields, but I removed them just to showcase you how to deal with it. And here, let me save this code and let's see if we get the correct response. Let me just hit refresh. So here we have the console.log. Here we got the current user. Let me remove this breakpoint. So as you can see, we got the response. So here we have the ID, we have the mail, and we have the UPN. So currently, if there is no value set up, then we got the NA, and if we don't, then we can take it directly that value. So there is one more thing. So we got the current user. So we did not pass any email address to fetch the user data from, but there is one another function that we can fetch the data of any user by passing their email address. So remember, to access this API, there is one another API. So there are two APIs basically. User.read, that means it will read only your profile, and the second access is the user.read basic.all. That means you have access to each and every user's profile, only read access, not write access. So these you must do. Then so let me just copy this another function. So let's say const matching, I am going to use the same. I'm not going to modify anything except email address. So let's say there is one user as user1. So I will directly hard code here if we, and here I will console logged in user and user by email ID. So what it will do, it will call the first one to get my data. then the second one to get the data of the user one, right? So let's wait for it to run. I will hit refresh. Let's go to console. So first it says NA because data is still getting, and here we can see we got the data of the user one, and here's my previous console to get my data. So if you need to get any user data, so just need to pass their email address. So these must be a valid email address. If you put that email address something wrong, then it will not fetch any data. So you can easily use the try and catch block statements to handle those errors. So how we can make it more better? So let's say for demo purpose, I have built like one HTML, so where you will pass any user email ID and it will fetch the data. So let me just copy that code just to save the time. So it's nothing extra I did, just added few input fields to get the user data and two buttons. So I will just copy that code, and no issue, I will share this code on repo as well, or a link to in the description. So you can just npm install and run it on your end. So this is the code I have added. So there are two functions to get the user profile and get the profile by email. And in the return statement, I have taken one input box to get the email. So whatever the email will put, once we click on that button, it will fetch that user data. The second button is get current user detail. And here I am just rendering that information. So here I have used the proper loading and no data conditions. So let's wait for it to finish. So let me go back here and refresh this. So here we have the fetch user profile and user email. So if I click on get current user, it will get my data. The phone number is not available here, that I have handled that condition. The phone number is not available. And let's say if I enter the another user limit address, so let's say user 2, let's say at 27 on my .com. Let me click on the button. So you see that I got the information. So this is the user 2. Job title, phone and office location is not set up there. So that's why I got that information. And if I click on get current user, then it will fetch my information. Now you got the information, and last thing is to deploy this package on your environment. So before that, you have to specify the API permission that you gave. So this is the thing that I have already did. So I did not added any condition or any configuration in my package solution. But this is your first time, then every time you write such code where the graph API is involved, you have to specify the permission on the solution.json file. So how you do that? So here we just have to write the web API permissions, and it's an array of object. So it will contain the resource and the scope. What is the scope? That scope will be our API, and copy it. And the second one is user.read. Okay. So let me just build this quickly. We need to add the resources as well. Okay. So what I will just use this one. So first I will clean, then bundle, and then package. So we'll wait for it to complete the process, and once done, we'll deploy this package to see how it displays the information when we deploy this. So here we have built the package and deployed it on my app catalog. So you can notice there is one additional thing, and the information it says that you are using any graph APIs. So these access must be needed. So whatever the API configuration we have added in the package solution.json file, so these APIs we must need to approve. So when I deploy it, then without any approval, I will not see any data there. I will see the 404 or authorization error in the console. But when you approve it from the access center, so API access panel here, then only you can show the data. So whatever the graph API series and the videos we are going to see will have the same step. So doesn't matter what graph API you are using, this is the exact same procedure you have to follow once you are deploying the package. So if you have any doubt or any questions, you can always let me know in comments. I will share the link to this code as well, so you can test it on your end and modify it accordingly. Thank you.